Now, stop me if you've heard this one before.
You always say that, Papa.
Ha! And yet you never stop me. But this time, my plans had gone, well, all to pieces.
Tell the story! Tell it!
But of course.
2023 has been a strong year so far for VR games that make me feel something. Games that make me think about complex human situations or emotional moments. First up, we had Before Your Eyes, which is a powerful story-driven game about the constant passing of time and how precious life really is. And now we have Another Fisherman's Tale, which tackles themes of running away from responsibility, growing up, and creating memories, all wrapped in a package of smart VR puzzle mechanics and enjoyable gameplay. Now, I'll come right out and say that I've never played the original Fisherman's Tale. Despite the fact it's regarded as one of the finest VR puzzle games that money can buy, and it won VR Game of the Year at the 2019 awards, the original title has managed to pass me by. However, now that I've experienced the full story of Another Fisherman's Tale, I'm ready to go back and right my wrongs. The sequel, which launches today on Quest, PCVR and PSVR 2, is such a rich, charming and surprisingly emotional game that it's finally pushed me into picking up the first game to fully appreciate the tale that's being told here. Another Fisherman's Tale throws players into the shoes of two different characters throughout its roughly 3-hour duration. During present-day segments, you play as Nina, the daughter of the titular fisherman Bob, as she cleans out her parents' basement whilst reminiscing about and reliving all the stories her father would tell her as a child. Then, during these larger-than-life stories, players assume the role of Bob. Well, not quite. This version of Bob is a small wooden doll who has the ability to remove his limbs at will, throwing his head to higher vantage points to get a view of the area, or changing his human hands for crab claws or pirate hooks, all plays into the puzzle-solving mechanics which form the bulk of this adventure. The story itself plays out with near constant narration, with Bob recounting the adventures he embarked upon and a younger version of Nina innocently asking questions. It quickly paints a picture of a father and his daughter playing make-believe with toys. The game's story takes place across multiple fantastical locations, from the inside of a ship filled with pirates to the bottom of the ocean. But if you look a little closer at the details, or step back to take in the bigger picture, it's always clear that these locations are in fact miniature wooden toy sets in the basement of your old family home. And the story itself is a mere memory of earlier years spending quality time together as a family. These themes of family and togetherness form the central narrative of Another Fisherman's Tale. On the surface, it may seem like you're playing a game about a fisherman embarking upon a fantastical journey, but in truth, you're venturing back into childhood and remembering time spent with someone who might not be around anymore. Pair this with a subplot about Nina's mother, and the game certainly has the ability to make players feel something, especially players of a certain age who might be a little bit more aware of the passage of time. It's this emotional hook that kept me gripped until the credits rolled, and is a key element in why a game like this could just as easily appeal to children, with its engaging gameplay and colourful fun-filled environments, or adults, with its slightly more serious undertones and messages about the importance of family and memories.
Once or twice upon the tide, I became a fisherman, following my father's plan and fishing for my father's pride.
As compelling as the story is in Another Fisherman's Tale, it wouldn't have gripped me quite as tight if the gameplay wasn't equally as enjoyable. The core gameplay of Another Fisherman's Tale is centered around medium-sized locations packed with ingenious puzzle solving, the kind of puzzles that only feel possible in a VR game where you can control your head, hands and body independently of one another. The first time you detach your head from your body to get a better vantage point of an area, and then watch as you pilot your torso around remotely before firing off one of your hands to reach an object in another part of the environment, it can feel a little strange, but it's a good kind of strange. A really impressive, this is some seriously smart stuff kind of strange. Most puzzles through the 5-chapter long story involve needing to either send one or more of your detachable body parts into a specific area to then retrieve an object or unlock an otherwise locked door. It's some of the finest puzzle solving action I've encountered in VR to date, and a few of the more complex puzzles genuinely stumped me for a decent chunk of time, leaving me wandering back and forth aimlessly as I searched for somewhere new to throw my head. The other flavour of puzzles is a mechanic whereby the player can replace their wooden human hands with various other appendages to solve specific problems. For example, a pirate hook for a hand allows the player to scale a climbable cliff, or a crab claw will allow the player to cut through ropes or wires. It's a fun mechanic that plays into many of the puzzles throughout the campaign, and I would have liked to see a few more variants of these interchangeable parts, even if it was just for some more fun experimentation. In the later stages of the game, there are also a few sections where applying a certain hand gives players control of a larger device or character. A story highlight for me personally was a section in a submarine where you took control of 2 large claws to grab and throw explosive barrels out of the way. I would have loved to see sections like this utilised more in the campaign, as they were fantastic when done right. However, these same sections also highlighted one of my only gripes about the game overall.
There's only one way to go. Hup. But it would be hard going with only one hook. 2 hooks? Now I was twice the pirate. I mean, sailor.
As fantastic as Another Fisherman's Tale is, I can't review the game without mentioning the fact that I often felt like I was fighting against the controls rather than having them work with me. Normal gameplay moments like walking around and exploring feel great, and the haptics on the PSVR 2 in particular come into play in nice ways to really immerse you in the experience. However, oftentimes when you've detached a hand and are controlling it remotely to solve a puzzle, it's difficult to get the hand to move the way you want it to. Sometimes the hand won't quite spin to face the same direction as your controller, or it will get halfway there and then snap back to a completely different direction. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but it did cause a few moments of frustration. This frustration is also apparent in a few of the sections where you pilot larger machinery. Again, the movements you make with your hands don't quite always translate well to the movements or hands you're controlling remotely. At least that was my experience playing the game to completion on PlayStation VR 2.
I cast and reeled without a break, pulling bounty from the sea. Father said this life was free, as I followed in his wake.
Nina, darling, are you there?
In total, it took me just over 3 hours to beat Another Fisherman's Tale, and I loved almost all of my time with the game. The minor moments of frustration where the controls didn't quite play ball can be ignored if you, like me, enjoy a perfectly paced story with emotional beats and high quality puzzle solving. Visually, Another Fisherman's Tale does a great job of immersing you into a fantasy toy box world, so don't expect it to blow you away with high quality visuals all around. However, the real life segments in the basement and an epilogue section that I won't spoil did look rather impressive as the game moved away from the fantasy and into the real world. If you're looking for an enjoyable emotional experience with clever puzzles and lovable characters, then I highly recommend Another Fisherman's Tale, a slice of poignant VR puzzle perfection that is only slightly marred by some occasionally frustrating controls.
Once or twice upon a time, I was a young fisherman.